All right, so we're at the point where we can start editing this. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to create a sequence. So all we have to do, you could manually create a new sequence, okay? Or you can drag the footage that you want and it will look at the footage, the size, everything, and then it's going to build it off of that. So you got multiple options of how you can do this. What I would say though, if you are going to drag footage to build your sequence, it's also going to build the size of the window and everything. You want to have the footage to be the size of what you want everything else to be. So if you drug 4K footage over that you were going to use for special effects and all the rest of your stuff is recorded in 2K 1980 by 1080, then you're going to actually have issues with sizing because you would have to increase the size of everything, which is going to start pixelating some stuff rather than shrinking the 4K footage down. So you want to make sure that you have the main size drug in. Okay, in this case, we only have one. So we can drag this over. So I just dragged it over. Now, what is it doing? This just created, so see here is my raw file. Okay, and then here is my sequence. Okay, so this is, let's rename, this is my raw edit. Okay, now what do we do with the raw edit? A raw edit, we have to cut this up, okay, and roughly put it together. Okay, we're not worrying about like having the lines be, perfect. We're not looking at perfect audio. We're not looking at doing J&L cuts yet. We're just getting the stuff in order based off the script. Okay. Now, once we have this sequence brought in, we can take it back off of here because we might want to build it different. In this case, if I double click on the footage, I can open it up here. This is my source monitor. This is showing me what I have here. So if I don't actually have this, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete this. My sequence is already created. Okay. Now I can watch stuff from here, and I could pull the whole thing, and look there, I have it again. Okay. Or I could pull, say, just the audio. There's just the audio for the entire clip. Or I can pull just the video. So this gives us options of what we want to do based off footage that we have. Okay, so a couple things. If we watch the video, so I'm just going to quickly scrub through. That's why we like showing stuff in the source monitor, because we can quickly scrub through. So I can.
So? Let's not make this awkward.
Make this... You're the one who started this debacle.
Okay, there's a couple things that we got to do when we're trying to fix this. Now, when they're laughing or they're looking over at the director, those are artifacts. If we see mics showing up in the screen, if we hear them talking, those are all artifacts. Those are things that we do not want in our edit. Look, there's a mic. This completely breaks the fourth wall. This is not good to have in your edits. Okay, so as we're doing our edits, we want to make sure that we don't have that stuff. We want to make sure that we have the best audio that we can for each of our people, which means when...
Listen.
That is definitely not a clip that we want.
I can see you're upset. You probably had a bad day, and now you're taking it out on me. And I understand.
Yeah, I had a bad day because...
Okay, now, one of the key concepts that I want you guys to get is that we edit to the eyes. That means the eyes draw our attention. So when we hear a person talking, we should be looking at their eyes. If they are looking in a specific direction to try to draw our attention, we need to be looking in that direction. Okay, so if this person right here is talking, we should not be looking at the back of his head. There are times where we're doing J&L cut where we might be looking for facial reaction which is awesome. We want to look for facial reaction, but at the same time, we might want to do that as like an insert or a cutaway shot, but doing like a J&L transition where we're hearing, say, him talk while we're still looking at this person, and then we move to him. That makes it flow smoother. But for the most part, we are looking at the eyes when they are delivering their lines. Okay, so this is actually split up into two. I got this zoomed out, so let me zoom. We have other clips. Now we are looking directly at him. So this is technically split up into two whole runnings with mistakes. Finishing right here, and then we are repeating it again, looking all at this one. This is an efficient way to record rather than record a piece here, reset, record with him, reset, record with him. That's a lot of work for lighting, audio, and the actors. It takes time. So a lot of times you'll see scenes are recorded all in one viewpoint and then re-recorded all in one other viewpoint, and then you might also have an establishing shot or a master shot that is recorded where you can see both characters, and then you have multiple things to cut and go back and forth from. Now, how do we determine which cuts that we need to do? Well, we would go to our script and we would look. And this is the script. This is what we want to follow. So this is our rough outline of where we want to go. We're bouncing back and forth from Robbie and Peter in the same scene, delivering their dialogue. Okay, now this is not really telling us what is going on if we're doing J or L cuts, but we do want to make it so that we are flowing back and forth and not making it look like one person is delivering their line and then there's a pause and then the next person is delivering their line. We want it almost feel more realistic, like they're kind of actually having a real conversation. There is no breaks in time. Some of times they're talking over each other, that type of stuff. Okay, so what we want to do, and this is the easiest way that I would say to do it. We know that Robbie and Peter are switching off. Listen, if you would just lock the door, then there would be no issue. Robbie is him. Okay, so one of the easiest ways to do this with just this one clip, since we only have one clip, is to actually cut this up using in and out. In and out are these squiggle brackets right here. We can do in and out by clicking on this, or we can use shortcut keys, which I for the in point, O for the out point. And then what we can do is we can insert or we can overwrite. Now, for the first time that we're running through this, we could use overwrite, and basically every time that we hit this button or we hit the period, it will take the footage from the in point to the out point of here and put it here. And then it will move our playhead to the end of it and we can continue on. So what we want to do is we're going to get all of Robbie's delivery of speech pieces, and then we're going to get all of what's his name, Peter's, okay, delivery of the speech pieces. But instead of us using overwrite, because that will overwrite whatever's currently there, we will use insert, and we will just move our playhead to in between, and then we can interject that. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I'm going to go through a little bit. So now they're delivering the same thing multiple times. I'm kind of looking for the best one. Now they have well then. Let's see what we got.
Let's not make this awkward.
You're the one who started this debacle.
I started no debacle.
I disagree.
Well then.
Yeah, well then.
Okay, there it is. So we have the so's. Now let's see if we got that, because maybe that was something that's not in the script and they kind of ad-libbed, but maybe we want to keep it. So
Yeah, well then. Yeah, well then.
Mike's in the picture. They're looking at the director. I can hear the director. We don't want any of that.
Then. Listen, if you would just lock the door, something about me coming in, you wouldn't.
It was locked!
Well, make it harder to lock. Pick it.
Okay. So let's come here. We want to get that well then, so we're going to start with that.
So?
Now, I can scrub through this using arrow keys. I can use space bar to start and stop. I can use the L key to speed up. I can use the J key to slow things down. K to pause, space bar to pause, space bar to play, or K to play.
Yeah, well then.
Okay, so that's what we want. We want that well then.
Hello. Hello. Here goes now. I disagree. Well then.
That's what we want. Okay, now I'm trying to line this up. I'm also looking at my audio here when I'm playing.
Here goes now. I disagree.
Okay, that's where I want to put my endpoint. It's okay if I don't have it perfect. I could still have it actually part of him talking because we're going to trim that up later. This is just a raw edit. Okay, so that's my endpoint. I clicked I, or I could click here and see how it was, it just kind of grayed this out. Well, that's my endpoint. So it's right now I'm selecting everything else. I need to let it go till he says this phrase and then I can do my out point. That's my out point. Now I'm going to click the period key and let's zoom in so we can see that it's there. There's that piece of footage. So now if I was playing this, okay, my playhead, up and down arrows, snaps it to the start and end of any piece of clip, and that's because I have this snap in the timeline selected. Okay. All right, so now we're going to play more. Let's click back on here.
Yeah, well then.
So I know he's going to be speaking.
Listen, if you just lock the door when you take a shower, there would be no issue.
Okay, there's a break.
Listen, if you would just lock the door before you take a shower, there would be no issue.
Okay, I don't think that was that bad of a delivery, so we're going to just go back, get the start of it.
Listen, if you would just lock the door before you take a shower, there would be no issue.
It was locked!
Okay, now, what did I get? Let's go to the start of it, the start of the endpoint.
Listen, if you would just lock the door before you take a shower, there would be no issue.
It was locked!
Well, then use the lock that... Listen, if you would just lock the...
So that seems pretty good. Okay, I'm going to snap that. Now, if I hit the period key right now, look, I just put that in between. I just overwrote this piece. So Command Z or Control Z, depending on what device you want. I need to make sure my playhead is at the end. So I click here, play the playhead at the end. Now I'm clicking back here and clicking period. And now I just moved it over. So now I'm seeing.
Listen, if you would just lock the door before you take a shower, there would be no issue.
Okay, now, those are the two clips. I'm going to do one more. So we're looking here. Robbie, well then, here's this. Use the lock that's hard to pick.
Was locked!
Well, then use the lock that...
Okay, that's a mess up. We don't want it.
Okay then, use a lock that...
Okay, then use a lock not easy to open. Pick. Okay, then use a lock that's harder to pick.
I did. You are the worst roommate ever!
Okay, then use a lock that's harder to pick.
But you... Are you kidding? You are the worst roommate ever!
Why? Because I took a quick...
Okay, I think maybe that second one was a better delivery than the first one.
It's harder to pick.
Better.
It's harder to pick.
I did.
Okay, then use a lock that's harder to pick.
There's my I.
Okay, then use a lock that's harder to pick.
You are the worst roommate ever.
Okay, then use a lock that's harder to pick.
Yep, that one's way better. Okay, so. And I'm going frame, that was frame by frame, so I could actually see it. There's I.
Okay, then use a lock that's harder to pick.
Better.
Okay. I like that. Now let's hit period. We just added it. All right, so now I got 3 clips. I'm not cleaning them up yet. This is still rough.
Listen, if you would just lock the door before you take a shower, there would be no issue. Okay, then use a lock that's harder to pick.
Okay, those are my 3 clips from Robbie. Let's look at Peter. Yeah, well then, it was locked. Are you kidding me? You're the worst roommate ever. Okay, so now we come here. We want to go to the other side.
Yeah. Well then. Again, say that again. Yeah. Well then.
Okay, so there's a couple different deliveries on here. Now I'm going to go to my timeline and I'm going to click the down arrow or the up arrow to get my playhead in between the 2 clips. So we know that Robbie first delivers this, and then we want to see him deliver his yeah, well then. Okay, so if I am using the arrow keys, I can snap right in between. Now, instead of me hitting period to overwrite, I'm going to actually click to insert. So I want to get a good one of him saying, yeah, well then.
Yeah. Well then.
I don't like that one. The first one, he seemed pretty annoyed.
Yeah. Well then.
No, I don't like that one.
If you would just lock the door. Something about me coming in, you wouldn't.
It was locked.
Okay. I think the very first one was the best, but we got to be careful.
Yeah. Well then. Yeah. Well then.
Yeah, the first one's the best one.
We can talk again when head on straight. Good day.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah. Well then. Again, say that again.
Okay, we got to be careful when we're listening to it that we're not introducing the director. But I'm going to hit the comma key because I am using the insert. I could also click this button. I hit that, and now we have that footage. So this will hide those cuts that we just did because now we're switching back and forth.
Well then.
Yeah. Well then.
Listen, if you would just lock the door before you take a shower, there would be no issue. Okay.
Okay, so now we want to get the it was locked. So again, we're going to make sure that we're using our playhead and it is right in the middle, okay? We're going to go back to our source monitor, play.
Yeah. Well then.
I'm fast forwarding some.
Yeah. Well then. If you just lock the door. Something about me coming in, you wouldn't.
It was locked.
Okay, that one's not bad.
Well, make it harder to lock. Take it.
Okay.
We'll use a lock harder to pick.
Are you kidding? Are you kidding? You are the worst roommate ever.
Okay, both of those I actually think are pretty good deliveries.
We'll use a lock harder to pick.
Are you kidding?
No, we gotta go back further.
Hello.
Also.
Something about me coming in, you wouldn't.
It was locked.
That's what we want.
Also. Was locked. Also.
It
was locked.
Oh, comma. There we go. Now we're gonna drop our playhead down at the end.
kidding? You were the worst roommate ever.
Why? Because I took a quick snap.
I
Are you kidding? You were the worst roommate ever.
Okay, I think that's pretty good because it's like he's frustrated because this guy is just not getting it. Robbie is not understanding what he did, and he is frustrated with it. So I think we're capturing that. So let's add that one. Okay, so now rough edit wise, what do we got? Let's just see it play. Now if I wanted to zoom out, I could drag this out. I could also click on the hand and click on the zoom. I can click to zoom in. I can alt click to zoom back out. Let's play.
Well done.
Yeah, well done.
Listen, if you would just lock the door before you take a shower, there would be no issue.
It was locked.
Okay then, use the lock that's harder to pick.
Are you kidding? You were the worst roommate ever.
Okay, now my flow when I'm doing this, I would do all of Robbie's parts first, and then I'd do Peter, but I want you guys to see the parts. So assume that we have all of that done. Now we would go through and we would start cleaning up, okay? So here,
No issue.
okay, we have a little bit here of too much. He starts talking, and we don't want that, okay? So we have different toolbars here. If we need to create space and move things, we can use the track select forward, or we could hold it. We could do track select backwards. Shortcuts would be A for this. So if I click A, I can click anywhere with my mouse, and it's going to select all of those. If I click, see how it's showing the two arrows? If I hold Shift while I'm doing it, I can select just one item or one track with its grouping stuff. Okay, and if you don't remember what it is, if you look in the bottom left-hand corner, it will tell you what each of these tools do. Okay, now what we want is we want to actually be able to slide some of this clip and trim the edges of it while we are still keeping everything locked together. So that would be a ripple edit tool. Okay, that's B on the shortcut key. So here, see how it's showing as yellow? I can drag, and now as soon as I dragged a little bit, on the left is what my cut would be. Okay, on the right is where it's currently ending. So I can trim up. I want to get none of him talking. All right, now we can play.
Listen, if you would just lock the door before you take a shower, there would be no issue.
It was locked.
Okay, that's much smoother than what we had before. What we had before was this.
Take a shower, there would be no issue.
It was locked.
Okay. Much smoother now.
If you just lock the door before you take a shower, there would be no issue.
It was locked.
Okay, that is a trim. Now let's say that I accidentally cut too much on him. So let me just do that. If I'm just doing a normal edit with the selection, I got this space. I have to get rid of that space to get them to go together, but I'm missing, say, part of his stuff. The rolling edit, or excuse me, the ripple edit, that's B. That means that I can click on this edge and I can actually drag it back out. And I can get that piece that I accidentally cut off.
Use the lock that's
Locked.
okay then. Use the lock that's harder to pick.
Are you kidding?
Okay, there was a little hiccup right there in the sound.
Harder to pick.
Are you?
All right, so come here. I'm just going to trim just a little bit. Now I can also use the playhead to try to trim off where that piece is, and it will snap to the playhead. That's one way to do it. You could also click the snap off for when you want to be really, really
Are you kidding?
precise.
You are the worst roommate ever.
Okay.
Well then.
Yeah. Well then.
There is quite a bit of pause right there. This is where we'd want to clean up. So in terms of rough edit, we're at a rough edit. For really cleaning up audio and having them flow on top of each other, being able to talk, sounding more like a conversation, that is where a finer edit would be. That's where we are really paying attention to the spaces and the pauses. Okay, so when I'm listening here,
Yeah.
that is too long. Okay, so let's look at a J and L. Okay, I want,
Well then.
Yeah.
I think it would be good to have him almost say, yeah, well then, right on top. Okay.
Well then.
I like seeing his face, though, doing it. So we want to tighten this up a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Now I can look at the audio and I can clean this up a little bit.
Yeah.
So that right there is the yeah. I want less of a pause from him. So this is where I want to do a ripple edit. And I want to trim to that point. I need to see that edge though. So I'm going to trim to that point that I just identified. Now let's look.
Yeah. Well then.
We want to make sure that there's not much of a pause.
Well then.
Yeah.
It's still too much of a pause. All right, but what we're going to do is we're going to do, this was where we can do a J cut. So we want him to actually start talking right before we see him, okay? So that will flow a little bit better. So we could trim up. We're going to trim up some, so we'll do the ripple edit. Let's trim up so they're tighter.
Well then.
Yeah. Well then.
Okay, better. Now we're going to do a J cut, which means that I'm going to hear his audio before I see his face, and it will form kind of like a J. All right, so we can click and hold here, and that is using the rolling edit tool. Now this, I can kind of pick like where I want. I could also click specifically on the time. Now if I click this as doing the audio and the video, but I can click option, or it'd be alt, and I will see it just smaller. So when I'm clicking here, see that's showing everything. That's what's dragging everything. But if I'm holding the alt or option key, I can select just the video. So I'm just dragging that back. So now okay, let's listen.
Well then.
Yeah. Well then.
Okay, that's a little bit better.
Well then.
Yeah. Well then.
The audio actually came in just a smidge before, but it just seems like it ties it together.
Well then.
Yeah. Well then.
Because it's like he is pretty annoyed. Okay, now if the audio doesn't mix very well, here we can also add a transition in between just by clicking once we're at the edge, and we can add a default transition. This could be cross power. We don't need much. We need just a smidge. We don't need any transition right there. We're just changing the power.
Yeah. Well then.
That's pretty good. So that would be, and this kind of forms a J. Okay, you would use J and L transitions to help give spatial reference. There's lots of things that we could do in this. Okay, that is part of a fine edit. Okay, you don't mess with J and L cuts, inserts, any of that stuff until after you have a good rough edit and you clean it up so that it flows quick. Okay, you're adjusting the pacing so that this is not lingering.
Well then, listen. If you would just lock. Listen.
See,
Listen.
that's almost cutting off right there. But
Listen.
this would probably be a good one to see his face, because he's annoyed. See his face a little bit while he starts talking. Okay. If he was talking before we go to him, that would be J. If we hear him continue while we're looking at the next one, that would be an L cut. Okay. In this case, I think that we are a little bit too tight. So we can stretch this out just a little bit.
Listen. Well then. Listen.
Okay, you hear the director? The director is right there. Let's zoom in, because that is a break in artifact and we really don't want those. That's the director.
Well then.
Okay, we're going to cut right there.
Well then. Listen. If you would just lock the door before you take a shower, there would be no issue.
It was locked.
Okay then. Use the lock that's harder to pick.
Okay, there's a couple other areas that we could add J and L transitions, but I think you guys got the idea. That's what we're looking for. The next thing that we would probably do is we're going to want to add graphics. Adding graphics are really easy. We could just add on the text tool, and we could put stuff on there. Oh, I forgot inserts and cutaways. We could use the razor tool. We could cut up. We could find the matching clip of looking at Robbie or Peter's face to get their reaction, and then we can actually put that on top of the clip while they're talking so that we would see them. So see here, if I was to show that real quick.
Well then. Listen. If you would just lock.
Okay, let's say right there. We want to see.
Are you kidding? Are you? Yeah.
Well then.
All right. Let's find that clip.
Listen. If you would just lock the door.
You see his face? He looks PO'd.
Yeah. Well then.
Listen. If you would just lock the door.
Okay, let's say that we want to get a little bit of that. So I'm going to go back, just looking at his face. It's like he cannot believe what he's hearing. Let's get some of that. Okay, that's what we want to put. Now we don't want it to copy on here, okay? So we need to actually change where we're going to be moving these files when we do insert and overwrite. We want to make sure that we are putting this there, okay? And at this point, we only need the video. We don't need the audio, okay? So we can actually just click here and we have our playhead marked. So I'm just clicking and I'm just putting this there.
If you would just lock the door before you take a shower, there would be no. If you would just lock the door before you take.
Let's just look at it a little bit slower. Yeah, so we get to see a little bit more of his face as the line's getting delivered. Now we're also making sure that the audio and the head is matching that action, okay? Which he's looking up, and that matches up.
If you would just lock the door before you take a shower.
That looks pretty good. It's quick.
If you would just lock the door before you take a shower, there would be no issue.
It was locked.
Okay then. Use the lock that's harder to pick. Are you kidding?
Okay, so that's an insert. All right, graphics, we could add this. This is a graphic. And we can change the size. We can add, all kinds of stuff on here. Now, I don't get to see what that edit looks like. If I want to see it, I need to click on my window and I need to be able to select graphics. So Essential Graphics opens up the window here. There it is. Okay. Now I can also adjust the size, the position, the alignment. I can pin this to the video frame. I can change the colors, the fill, the stroke, the type of text, all of that stuff. If I don't like this here, I can say piece of text. Now that window's a little bit small. Let's click on the selection tool again. So that's V shortcut. Now I can actually resize this so that I can see it. If you wanted to change the colors, so let's say I'm changing the colors, you got to make sure that you have your text selected. Okay. We can space it out. We can do all kinds of stuff with this. It really depends on what is your interest for this. This is one way to do the graphics. Okay. We can even keyframe this too, but we're not going to learn this yet. Now, I don't need that piece. I can also stack shapes and stuff underneath it. Reorder them. And then that's basically what we have. Now, what do the graphics look like? That is a piece of graphic. Okay, it's going to show up as pink. Pictures will also show up. Let's zoom out. So this right here, I can put on top of everything. So I don't see it unless I have my playhead. I can drag because it's a still frame thing.
Well then, listen. If you would just lock the door.
So this is one way to put a graphic. A lot of times you might end up doing this as lower thirds for a graphic. So we could bump this down. Now, if we wanted to move both things, we got to select both of them. And we got to make sure that we have the selection tool. And then we can position them. So I can just drag. I can position this in the middle. I can align it to the video frame or any of that stuff. Okay. Right here, that shape, maybe I want to make it black. Maybe I want the piece of text. I want this to be white. There's lots of ways that we could do this. I want that shape to actually be long enough. And then here's my anchor point so that if I am zooming it in or out, it will size. So I can also size it here, height. I can put curves on the edges. I can do all kinds of stuff with it. All right, so that is graphics. Now, would I want to do different ones? Yep, you could do different ones. You can click browse and there's already stuff here. So I'm like, yeah, that one's trash. How about this one? Or this one. You can just drag and drop where you want it. There's our graphic. We can put a name on it. There it is. Now, if I want to replace, I can highlight, okay? Your text here. Okay. And this will have some type of animation to it, okay?
Well then.
Yeah. Well then.
Listen. If you would just lock the door before you take a shower, there would be no...
Now, sometimes they end up having stuff that's minimized or not minimized, or visible or not visible, excuse me. You could also look at different keyframes that they already have built in, and you can adjust that. A lot of these essential graphics already have stuff. So, I mean, you got, breaking news, and we can kind of scrub back and forth for a lot of these to see what they will look like by hovering over. So you guys can play around with that. All right, so that was graphics. That's basically it then for doing your edit. Okay. You're cleaning up. You're going to end up having to add some audio. You can do that at the bottom. We're going to be walking through that in class also. So you should be able to get fully through this. A good, decent edit, good cuts. It looks good, sounds good. That's the main thing. There is no breaks in the fourth dimension or the fourth wall. We don't hear any directors, no artifacts, none of that. And the pacing is good. There should be no lingering on one person, just pausing. Okay. After that, that's when you make sure you add your J and your L cuts and you are really cementing in the pacing. And then you can add your music and build that out. You can add sounds for building a soundscape, the graphics, and that's basically the project. All right. Good luck. Have fun.